As of late, I've begun to spend a considerable amount of time binge-watching K-dramas. In between spurts of anime, of course. And I've found that a lot of, or I should say majority of them, contain themes of romance and love intertwined. And I love. Sarangul sarang. Keiseki. But don't trip, anime still takes up a majority of my free time. 안녕하세요. 저는 영기입니다. 새 비디오에 오신 것을 환영합니다. I don't know why I started this video off in Korean, as it's going to be an anime-related video. If anime has taught me anything, it's that the flowers of romance may still bloom in the fall, as winds become more frigid and daylight more fleeting. Today, I'll be going over a few lovely anime that soothe my lonely ass. Let's begin with a trio of short romance anime. Now, I'm using the term romance pretty liberally here. They're short in the sense that each episode is only a handful of minutes, so there's no real character development or story that's explored or expanded on. But when you have a few moments of free time to spare, why not? Because even though they're short, they're still a waste of your time, baka. Of the three, let's begin with Deji Mitsugaru, Deji being an Okinawan word that means totally or very. And of the three, it's the most interesting, which says a lot. Trust. It follows the story of a high school student who works at her family's inn, where she meets a boy, and every time that they're together, fantastical and supernatural things happen. Hence, Deji. It's not really a romance anime per se, but it has all of the building blocks to make for a really cute story, from its animation, to its characters, and to the mystery behind it all. But its short runtime doesn't permit for any meaningful development. Let's move on to the next two shorts, and I grouped them together because they're pretty similar in premise and what goes on. The first being Ganbare Doki-chan, and the second being Tawawa on a Monday. The first following the life of your average office worker who has a crush on her co-worker, and the second following the lives of three girls and their paramours. Both anime are filled to the brim with fanservice, if that tickles your fancy, and contain male leads, if you can even call them that are essentially faceless and only communicate by grunts and hand gestures that your sad otaku can project himself onto. Again, there's nothing really interesting, just some unnecessarily large, tig, old, bitty anime characters. Now, what you came here for. 3 anime that offer a more realistic and palatable take on romance than thirst traps running around with watermelons on their chests. The first being komisanwa komyusude. A romance anime that follows the life of Komi Shoko, a high school student who experiences extreme social anxiety to the point where she's unable to talk or communicate with anybody else, hence what the Japanese call komyusude. At high school, Komi meets Tadano Hito, who helps her out on her quest to make 100 friends. And I'll be the first to point out, what the hell is that on his head? A flower? Alien satellite? Splooge? The first episode was really cute, especially the ending sequence where the two of them find themselves alone in the classroom and use the chalkboard to communicate and talk with one another, setting up what I thought would be a really sweet and encouraging tale for those who experience similar anxieties, setting up the groundwork for the two to grow closer together, develop their relationship, and work towards overcoming Komi's extreme komyusude. Instead, Komi's touted as the school's princess for her attractiveness and her perceived aloofness. And other students even begin idolizing her in a manner that's just comically and outlandishly bad. Komi and Tadano do share moments of closeness, and do eventually develop feelings for one another. But how others treat her and their interactions with Komi take away from the overall experience for me. They take away from how monumental and special the little moments of progress in both Komi's komyusude and her relationship with Tadano are. But that's just me. I don't need silly embellishments for the sake of comedy to drive the story. Next up, we're transported back in time to Japan in 1921 in Taisho Otomi Otogi-banashi, Japan's Taisho era, setting the backdrop for this fairy tale, which shares a lot of similarities to the summer release Shinigami Bocchanto Kiromedo. In this tale, our main character, Shima Tamahiko, loses the ability of use in his right arm due to an accident, and as a result, his business magnate of a father deems him worthless to the family estate, and he even goes as far to send him to live on his own in a remote villa to keep him out of the public's eye. Tormented by his father's words and treatment, Tamahiko resigns himself to live a sullen life of isolation, where he'll one day be forgotten and die. That is until one day when a young girl, Tachibana Yuzuki, or Yuzu for short, arrives at the villa proclaiming to be Tamahiko's live-in caretaker, and when old enough, bride, as she was purchased by Tamahiko's father for this purpose. Taisho Otomi Otogi-banashi shares a lot of elements that are reminiscent to that of Shinigami Bocchanto Kiromedo. Introduce a young male who comes from a prominent family, is affected by something beyond his control, is then neglected by his family for that, becomes sullenly depressed, introduce a female caregiver, profit? The only thing that's really missing here are the parallels of sickness, detachment, and companionship from childhood to adulthood, explored in my summer video, which arguably make Shinigami Bocchanto Kiromedo a more touching and meaningful experience. I pray for you in the night. Yuzu, radiant sunlight that she is sold off to support her family at a young age. Stripped of her agency, she takes it in stride, wanting to make something meaningful and happy of her life. Meeting Tamahiko, who believes that she deserves much more than to be subjected into her new role, she finds somebody who treats her much more than an accessory. Thus, the two embark on a meaningful journey of companionship, going through all of the growing stages of their newfound relationship, amorous feelings blossoming along the way. It's cute. Yuzu's absolutely adorable, and she carries the weight of both her compatriot and I dare say even anime. Yuzu's just somebody that you want to bask in her radiance and never want to see disheartened. Give her 10 years time and I bet that she'd totally be waifu material. Jumping back to the present, we're brought back to modern day Japan with Senpai ga urasai, Kohai no hanashi, proving that romance is timeless, and what I found to be the cherry on top of the romance anime cake constructed in the fall. Mwah. Meet Igarashi Futaba, the titular kohai, a child-sized woman with bright eyes who's looking to make something of her life as she enters the workforce. On her first day at work, Futaba meets Takeda Harumi, the titular annoying senpai who's brutishly large, in charge, and outspoken, her mentor figure at work. Senpai ga urasai kohai no hanashi follows their everyday experiences as they spend a considerable amount of time together, Takeda showing the ropes and all of the ins and outs to Futaba, from office work to client meetings to sharing meals to even going for a bubbly after work. Kanpai! Again, everyday normal experiences that you would expect from your typical salaryman, following their day-to-day in an idyllic interpretation that romanticizes the mundane. Along the way, Futaba finds just how reliable, competent, and caring, especially to her annoying senpai can be, who's willing to offer and lend a hand whenever it may be needed. As they spend more and more time together, Futaba's then able to carve out her own place within her position and within the company, and stand proudly next to her senpai. Thanks to her senpai, who's able to guide her in almost every area of the job, except for one. How to deal with growing feelings towards your coworker. Of course, in reality, this may be unilateral, unreciprocated, and even all due to a sense of newfound admiration and novelty. But this is anime, and all situations that lead up to the profound sensations that we may classify as romantic intrigue align and scream, just kiss already! Not to mention the fact that their vast differences in stature often lead to humorous misunderstandings, but do provide for cute caricatures of innocent romance. Their coworkers can see it, we can see it, just kiss you already! Senpai ga urasai kohai no hanashi is really relatable and brought back a lot of good memories of my past life. That's why it got the #1 spot of romance anime in the fall season. Like Futaba, it's short, it's simple, but most importantly, it's sweet. And almost has me wanting to buy a one-way ticket to Japan to roll the dice. Jodan, Jodan. That's why I have anime to fill the dark void that is my heart. Shumatsu no Harem deserves to be mentioned here because in the one episode that was released, the main character doesn't give in to temptation for the sake of a promise that he made to his love. And if love isn't a romantic promise shared between two, then I don't know what love is. Anyway, even though the weather's cooling, anime centered on idyllic ideals of love kept my heart warm. Couple that with K-dramas, content even. I'm so sad. Kyo wa, you know the rest.
Pessimist